Most people think respect comes from sounding louder. It doesn't. The people who truly command respect are usually the calmest in the room. The moment you stop trying to overpower people, you begin sounding more powerful. That is because authority is not always heard in volume. Sometimes it is heard in restraint. Today I'm giving you 5 phrases that help you command respect without shouting, without pleading, and without losing control of yourself. These are not manipulation tricks. They are tools of self-respect. And most people never realize how much authority they lose by reacting too fast or over-explaining too much. If you learn to speak like this, you stop sounding emotional and start sounding undeniable. And the first phrase is the simplest one, but it changes everything. The first phrase is, "Let me think about that." It looks simple, but it instantly slows pressure and protects your mind. Reaction versus restraint. Haste versus discernment. When someone tries to rush you into emotional agreement, this phrase gives you space to respond with intention instead of impulse. It tells the other person you are not easily cornered, and that alone changes the energy. Most people never realize how much respect they lose by answering too quickly. They confuse speed with strength, when in reality the pause is often where strength begins. Stoicism teaches that a pause is not weakness, it is control. A composed delay makes you harder to pressure and easier to respect. You do not need to prove your point in a rush. You only need to protect your clarity. And the next phrase is useful when someone tries to push past your boundaries. The second phrase is, "That doesn't work for me." It is a clean boundary that sounds firm without sounding aggressive. Self-respect versus approval. Clarity versus hesitation. This phrase is powerful because it does not over-explore, over-justify, or invite debate. It simply tells the truth. And that is rare. Most people never realize how much power they hand away by softening every boundary until it disappears. They say maybe later, I'll see, or I'll try, when what they really mean is no. Stoicism values directness without drama, and this is what that sounds like in real conversation. The hidden cost of avoiding this kind of phrase is quiet resentment, because your no was never fully spoken. You stay available to what you did not actually agree to. And the next phrase helps when you need to disagree without turning the moment into conflict. The third phrase is, "I see it differently." It is the most elegant way to disagree with confidence. Confidence versus defensiveness. Peace versus neediness. This phrase commands respect because it does not submit and it does not attack. It simply shows that your mind is your own. Most people either stay silent out of fear or over-explain out of insecurity. But this phrase shows maturity. Stoic independence means you do not need to win every exchange to maintain your dignity. You only need to remain steady. That is what makes this phrase powerful. It keeps the conversation clean, clear, and controlled. You are not fighting for approval. You are not performing for acceptance. You are simply standing by your perspective, without making it louder than it needs to be. And the next phrase is for moments when someone tries to make you doubt your own judgment. The fourth phrase is, "I'm not going to argue about this." It is a boundary against manipulation, circular arguments, and emotional traps. Peace versus chaos. Control versus emotional drag. This phrase works because it refuses to feed a conversation that has already stopped being productive. Most people never realize that endless arguing often has nothing to do with truth. It has to do with dominance, pressure, or ego. Stoicism teaches that not every battle deserves your energy. Sometimes the most respectful thing you can do is exit the loop. You do not need to wrestle every opinion into submission. You do not need to stay in a conversation just because someone else wants your reaction. The hidden cost of arguing with everything is that you start living reactively instead of intentionally. And the final phrase becomes the strongest boundary of all, when respect is being tested directly. The fifth phrase is, "We can continue when this is respectful." This is the highest level of calm authority. Dignity versus escalation. Restraint versus emotional collapse. This phrase does not threaten, beg, or perform. It simply sets the condition for continued conversation. It tells people that access to you requires respect. And most people never realize how powerful it is to end a disrespectful moment without raising your voice. Stoicism teaches that control begins with self-command, not with controlling others. That is why this phrase works. It changes the standard without turning you into the aggressor. It shows that disrespect is not normal, not automatic, and not something you will quietly absorb. The hidden cost of staying in disrespectful conversations is that your standards disappear one moment at a time. And these phrases are not tactics. They are signs of a person who has learned to govern themselves. The goal is not to sound impressive. It is to sound steady, clear, and unshakable. A person who speaks with calm authority becomes rare, and rarity creates respect. These phrases work because they come from inner discipline, not performance. They are not there to make you look powerful. They are there to make your standards unmistakable. A wise person does not shout to be heard. They speak in a way that makes their boundaries feel undeniable. They do not raise their voice to prove their value. They speak from it. Remember this. When your voice is calm, your standards become louder. If this spoke to you, comment which phrase you need most. Subscribe for more Stoic wisdom, and keep building the kind of presence that commands respect without ever needing to raise its voice.